when you're done with that, put it on, get the other portion. Yeah, put up here, please. And over here is just some touch-ups to what we did last week. And finishes up today. Basics of Soviet communism. Yeah, just those. It should be. Everybody done with the quiz? Oh, sorry. We're going to talk about these things. This week for homework, it's a lot of reading, so be warned. It's not overly too much, but more than, well, not much more than what you were doing. But anyways, it's going to be a little, one primary source on Soviet communism, several on Italian fascism, and then some reading to start you on Hitler's Mein Kampf. And just take it slowly. It's not, I think there's one thing to do on Friday night, so look for that one. And then the others are due on Tuesday. Mostly it's reading, but there are some things. There's all the assignments are posted. And I have the excerpts from Mein Kampf. I know some of you might have the book, but I have the excerpts posted, so you can find it in your book or otherwise. So pay attention to that. So last week we were talked through a lot of this stuff on the Bolsheviks and how Lenin was the first dictator and led put together the government, and then he passed away, and then there was Stalin. And much of this class we're going to be talking about his reign, Stalin, and Mussolini, and Hitler's, kind of all at the same time. But something to remember about communism is about the basics of it that you wrote into your notes. The basics is that private property is abolished, and that the government is going to be in control of the economy. And socialism socialism and communism have characteristic, or at least a characteristic goal is to even out the economy. So there's not a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of inequalities in income as well, inequalities of property. So they abolished private property, and all of the property, all of the business is owned by the state. The state is owned by everybody. And so it's obviously a sort of a circle that doesn't quite answer itself, because if everybody owns the state, then how do you succeed, and well, the state succeeds, and so you're part of the success. But communism and fascism and socialism is trying to even out, so there's not down times in the economy, nor is there hyper up times, and that will make it so that it'll be better for the average person. And a lot of people like that idea. If I could just stay steady, I think we all would sort of like that. And so it attracts people's attention. Like, what our intent is to keep things from being a roller coaster. Sometimes you have a good times, but then you lose it all. And a lot of that is theoretical. You know, people who actually make a lot of money and then they lose a lot of money, those people usually are not socialists. The people that are real successful and then lose it sometimes typically don't buy into the socialism. It's not that isn't a tenet of socialism or anything, but that's just sort of a historical observation. It's the people that sort of don't ever get into the updraft of big updrafts that tend to say, well, I wish I could just be steady, and I wish everybody was steady. I didn't mention this before, but sometimes you can look at public polling, private, secret polling, and ask people. I'm sure there's these psychology tests online, and where somebody might ask you, what if you could make twice what you're making? If your income could go up twice or three times, do you like that? Yeah. What if everybody's went up three times? Would you like that? Yeah. What if yours went up twice, but half of the people's went up three times, but yours went up twice? Yours doubled, but most of the people's went up three times. A lot of people say, I don't want that. So it's a comparison thing. Even though theirs doubled, a lot of people went even further up three times. They felt like they were deprived. And I think the Bible talks about stuff like that. Like somebody who works all day, and then he gets paid, and then he gets paid overtime. And there's another guy who's working right there with him who gets the same thing. And then the third guy came about halfway through the day, and he got paid the same thing. And then there's a guy who came like the last hour of the day, just the last hour, just kind of showed up for the job. And they paid him the same thing. So all four people got paid the same. Well, and what happened is those first two guys said, that's not fair. You paid them the same as me. They didn't work a half, and he worked only a tenth. And the New Testament lesson was, didn't I pay you right? Well, yeah, you paid me right, but you're not paying. Don't worry about them. Worry about yourself. So there's a sort of a connection. Like, wait, why are we so worried about other people's things? Well, a lot of people are that way. They're worried about how they stack up against other people, and that's what makes them happy or sad. Well, that's a kind of a natural. That's not necessarily a good character trait. You understand? Like, just worry about are you doing a good job? Yeah. Or did they pay you right? Yeah. And you're worried about that person? You paid him way too much. I have the money. I pay whoever I please. Well, that's not right. You're worried about that? You see? So that can be, so people that fall for that or bent towards that can be manipulated by communism, socialism, because they manipulate the person's sentiments about that. And so that's what the Communist Manifesto is all about. That is comparing yourself and the bourgeois who are exploiting the proletariats. So we're going to talk about that, how they did that. So the thing about Lenin is he took and he believed all that. And he was going to put it into plan where the government was going to control everything. However, after the Civil War, after they took power, after the revolution took power, and the Civil War, they got full dictatorship and full control. But now the economy was busted. They had no banks, they had no money. The farms were messed up and everything. So they had to have a retreat. What did this stand for?
New economic policy.
Yeah, the new economic policy. That was basically a free market. And we talked about, ironically, that was like the freest point in Russian history, really. Free economy, freedom of thought, religion, very little persecution. And so, and that was actually, this is Lenin's total time of being in power. This is Stalin's total time in power. NEP was, from 21 to 20, 28, 29, something like that. And then the 5-year plan is where the government sets all the quotas and all the production lines and consumption lines. So they set prices, they said, okay, we're going to produce this much grain, this much metal, this much shoes and clothing, and we're going to build these many houses and apartments. And the government was in control of everything. So there was always shortages. You study economics, whether it's back in this times or in our times, if the government controls pricing and controls production, it results, not just because governments tend to be inefficient, which is true, it results in shortages and sometimes surpluses. And you think, surplus, that would be good if there was a surplus of apples. Well, sort of, not really. You don't want a surplus of anything, really. I mean, you would like to have an extra that would save forever. Apples don't save forever, but I mean, if you could save a surplus of gold, for example, that would be good. Somehow you could just, I thought we only had $1 million worth of it, but in this ore area, there's 2 million. Okay, that's a surplus. Well, but typically surplus means like that you have way too much, which means the prices are down and the people that are in that business don't make as much. But also a surplus means it's not used, and so you weren't efficient in your work. For example, if you made spaghetti, you're like, okay, I'm gonna make spaghetti for 10 people, and I make it, and it's like there's only 4 people really can eat it. Okay, that's a shortage. Everybody sees that's bad. Like first person ate a lot, has a big dish. Here's another dish. So like they go a little bit. So now we have to do a little bit. Okay, everybody sees that. What if I made enough for 20? Like you have plenty, we're all, but now we have 10. We throw it out. Like, what's wrong with that? Well, you just wasted it. You wasted all that ingredients. So we're all happy, aren't we? We wasted that. We could have saved the money on the flour or whatever. However you do spaghetti, flour, the spaghetti part. But yeah, I am not a cook. Okay, so I do eat though, and so anyway, spaghetti. So you could have saved it, and then we could have had the same meal tomorrow. But instead, now we don't have any. We threw it out. Obviously, so that's the surplus thing. And the history of economics in America is that way, and that's in the United States. It's surpluses. We have a surplus of, in the United States, we have a surplus of labor. We have, in a certain labor, like we have people your age that all want jobs. We've talked about this, I think, before a little bit. We have everybody would like a good job. Not the same job, but the same pay. Like a $10 job. Say you're 16. I'd like a $10 job. I could work five hours from time to time, get $10 an hour. That'd be good. I think every first job, everybody would like that. And there are those kind of jobs, but very few. There are those jobs, but there's few. And actually, minimum wage is what, $7 or $8, right? And we talked about how that's actually inflated. That's way too high. Minimum wage should be 0. That's the minimum wage. And if it was 0, then everybody would be employed in something close to what they want. I mean, the first jobs, because the price would be negotiable, but it's not negotiable because you have to start at 7. Who starts at 7? Like I want to buy this thing. It's worth $40. What if I said, No, the minimum is 70. That's not gonna be good. There's gonna be plenty of those. Nobody's gonna do it. They're worth 40. No, but the government says that you gotta pay 70 for it. 70? That's a 40 thing. That's worth 40. Darn, the government said 70. That's what we do with unemployment, with employment. So there's a surplus of people that want those jobs, and a surplus of people wanting those jobs. That's called unemployment, and the government has created that. If you look back in the 1960s and 1950s, every young person was working. There was all kinds of little jobs. They weren't getting rich, but they were working. And what that does is like, oh, if you don't get rich, why do you do it? That's the story of our life in our country. You just work somewhere, and it gives you experience. And then you understand a little bit about money and saving and working for people. Like, God, some people are mean. Customers are rude or whatever. Somewhere, wow, you have to be good with this. You got to speak right. You got to present yourself right. You know, all kinds of stuff you learn, and then you move up. But if your first job is like after college, man, you're so deficient. You're not ready. Who's going to hire you? You're not ready. You work out all the stupidities when you're a teenager. Well, anyway, that's a tangent. But anyway, so that's in the United States. So magnify everything 100 times what happened under communism, where they controlled every single thing, every single price, every single quality thing, every single quantity thing, the labor price, every single thing. So there was a massive amounts of massive shortages, and massive surpluses. They made way too much of something that no one wanted, and they made way too low number of what people really needed, like food. It was like shortages, and they had way too many like bulky, heavy pieces of steel or something. It just made way too many things. Like, this is just a big block of steel. What do you do? This is a paperweight. I mean, how many people want a paperweight? What is this, free? No, it's $5. Nobody wants that. A $5 paperweight? Like, well, we have so much metal. Man, you should have done something different than a paperweight. You should have saved that weight and just save it at least and have some decent idea instead of like, we have 1 million paperweights for everybody. Are they free? Because nobody wants that. I mean, literally, they had many things like that. Shoes that nobody could wear. Like they would make this is the way they do in communism. This is the way it's not just Russians. This is what the Nazis did. They would make this shoe in one place and this shoe in another place. Why would you foul up somebody? Look, I only do right shoes. You can just crank them out. Right. We did 100,000 last week. Man, we only did 5,000 of these. So that's stupid. But that was sort of efficient in a communist way of looking at it. Like, you do one task, the right shoe. What about the left? Aren't they come in pairs? Look, it's all by itself, see? So your pants are not like that. Pants are one thing. But these are actually two separate, they would reason like that. It's stupid. Okay, anyway, so the 5-year plan is they would say, okay, for the next 5 years, we're going to do this. But when that was done, they'd have another 5-year plan. The next 5 years, we're going to do this and this on every single thing. On books, shoelaces, bananas, everything. Everything. And to the gullible, I keep using that, looking right at you, because you got me that time. The naive or someone just like, you think, well, that's a theory that does sound good. If, that's the key word, if, short key word, if we could produce everything that people wanted, wouldn't that be nice? At the quantity. Yes. Well, there you go. You like communism then. That's the first step. Like, if we could do that, might as well say, if we found all the gold in the world, would you like it? Shut up. That's a stupid. If you win the lottery, what will you do with it? That's a dumb question. It's just a dumb question. You're not going to win the lottery. If I went to Mars, I would like to drink a smoothie. It's just stupid conversation. You know what I'm saying? So if we could produce everything and the state controls it, would it be good? No, just the hypothesis, if it could be produced by the state, would you be for it? It's a dumb question. It doesn't mean. What if we were cartoon characters? If we were cartoon characters, would you? You know what I'm saying? And so, but people like going down the communist route. They take the first little step, like, look, I'm not going to be a communist. But if, I mean, just if this would be, would you? And so that's why some people, smart people, avoid any kind of hypothetical. But the super smart people also are hard to come to Christianity too, which is a good thing. Because not a good thing that they avoid, but they are good that they have that character trait in them that I don't want to do hypotheticals. And one hypothetical about Christianity is like, look, if the Bible was real, if Jesus is real, if he could save you, because a lot of times they say, I don't want to hear anything. But just go with if. And they'll say, I don't want to talk to you about that. And you think, oh, they're just scared to be a Christian or something like that. No, they're being principled. And they'll avoid communism too. They'll avoid the good thing, but they'll avoid the bad thing too. People like that. And so they're defending themselves. I'm so sick and tired of hypothetical pipe dreams. Communism, Christianity. Anyway, so just so you know. So we talked about this, how they did. So the 5-year plan is, if government is control, how did they control the people that resisted to this, and what was the basic elements of Soviet communism in the early decades? Obviously, political police that had these procedures, and they also enforced industrialization, and they forced people to collectivize, not only live together communally, but they collectivized the agriculture. They also persecuted the people that resisted, kulaks. The kulaks were the people that were sort of somewhat successful peasants. Talked about all that, collectivization. And so the idea here on the kulaks, remember that some people lived like this, some people had a little bit more, and then some people actually had a more sturdy house and had more livestock, maybe had goats and chickens and things. And these were the particularly attacked people. These were to be somewhat attacked, and the people that didn't have much of anything, those were manipulated people that were, well, at least they tried to manipulate them to attack the people who were in a different class. And so even though these were all peasants and they were farmers and maybe even neighbors for centuries with their families, the government, the communist government, used the propaganda and the rhetoric and the theories of Marx and Lenin, and they basically said, this is the bourgeois, and here's a proletariat. See, they don't have anything, and they're being exploited. Because, how come you don't have any? Do you see that you're poorer than them? And there's a lot of obvious reasons for that you could explain that goes back. But they would try to manipulate them and play on their sentiment of, just as I told you about somebody who doubled their income but was sour because there's someone else tripled their income. So even people that are both successful, triple the income, double the income, the double the income didn't like it because someone beat him to the triple income. But even at the bottom, somebody that has a few things was looked down upon by the people with fewer and fewer. And so that was played on by the communists, and they would bring people in and force the people at the bottom, and even people without anything would come, they would bust them in, and they would get them to publicly come to this farm right here and shame them and scream. There'd be a crowd, and there would be a policeman too, and they'd scream at the person at farm and say, "You have too many things. You have exploited us for way too long. You bourgeois, bourgeois," and they throw rocks at them and stuff like that. And it's just crazy. In China in the 1960s, when your parents were around, maybe, they did that in China, and it was much worse than in Russia. That part, but in Russia it gets really bad. So they're exploiting. They're exploiting their exploitation rhetoric and manipulating people. And so people would come and they would forcibly take with guns, force of arms. They would take their property and take it and give it to the state farm and move everything to the state farm and force all three of those types of farmers and the people below and above that would go force them into a state farm and work together, and no one would own any property. And so it's obviously incredibly destructive on social fabric, on neighborhoods and everything, and the economy. It really made everything inefficient. It sounds efficient on some level. If you didn't know anything about history, that's why history is so important. There's so many things that are going on, and people are taking baby steps towards this kind of thing in our country. They're taking baby steps. It's a long stretch before we get to that. But it seems like we have made a turn. Like, what is that again? Oh, communism. I don't know. I mean, they always talk bad about that, but we ought to give it a try. Those kind of people are in a dumpster right now. People who are like, I think communism is worth looking at. Those people are in one of those blue dumpsters, and they're looking in there for food. Like, oh, cool. This would be good. Look, somebody ate it. I think this is decent. But they think that they're in the enlightened world of new ideas instead of, oh, if everybody was equal, if no one really had any property, if you would redistribute the people's money, although rich people gave a lot of theirs to the poor people would rise up. But it's not true like that. Even Joe Biden, when he was running for president this last summer or whatever, he was debating all the other, not summer, it would have been like a year ago maybe. He is, out of all those Democrats, he's the least crazy of them, although he's very dysfunctional. I laugh, but okay. But all the people he was debating, they would say, we need to tax these people, we need to go in there and take money from them and them, and they were totally outright communists, saying exactly what Stalin and Lenin were saying and all this. They were saying it straight up in those debates. All the Democrats were debating each other, and Biden said, look, you can take all the money from all of those corporations, it's going to be like nothing for the poor people. And he's right. See, what he was positioning himself, Biden was I'm more in the middle, and they're crazy. And he won that way. He won that side that way.
Isn't that why they kicked Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, see, they were afraid. See, the Democratic Party.
Even though he was winning all of the
delegates, he would have won.
They just took him out.
Yeah, they just said we're going to lose if we go socialist, outright socialist. They knew, and they would have. I don't know. They could have stole it then, but they didn't know what was going to happen by this time. They were just trying something. They just knew that it's not going to work, and so they made everybody get out, and he won. But I'm just saying, in the debate, he was trying to appeal to the regular people, and so now he won't mention anything of that now. But who knows what's going to happen now? But anyway, so collectivization also was this. Now here's the thing to remember in our history, go way back, our American history, is we had a government that abused us. Okay, they abused us, and we said stop abusing us, and they said shut up. And so eventually we started boycotting and resisting. And when we started resisting, they went to war against us. Our government, our British government, the Redcoats and everything, went to war against us. And when they went to war against us, we scrounged and got an army together and somehow survived. And somehow we won that war. Okay, the Russians is like, if this is on a different planet type of situation. First of all, the Soviets, the Lenin won the revolution, and they won that civil war. That was a resistance and a war. That was sort of like, that was the war. Armies, white armies, red armies. The Reds won. Then they go to war against their own people. Well, the Civil War was against their own people too. Now they're going to go after the kulaks and anybody who resists, and they did resist. The difference here is when they resisted, is genocide. Genocide means where you wipe out a whole race of people. You know what Hitler did to the Jews? That was attempted genocide. Holocaust in Hebrew. Holocaust. So, this is what happens. They're going to force people to liquidate the kulak, the successful farmers. They're going to be liquidated. Well, eventually the kulak said, wait, the government comes and takes all of our stuff and gives it to the poor people, but really gives it to the state farms, which means I lost all my property. And then I have to work for the state farm. Okay, when they come for my property, they're not going to get my property. What are they going to do? They're going to hide some of the grain. They're going to dig a hole and put the grain in there and hide it from the government confiscating. Because they know this, it's in theory. They're giving it to the poor people. No, they're not. The government is taking it. The government is taking it. And people who are wise understand that. Whenever the government says, hey, you wealthy people, you need to be taxed more because the poor people are suffering. That's nothing but communist rhetoric. And people in this country and every country in the world know that that's just talk. If they tax the rich people, what do they do with that money? They just confiscate it. And they give crumbs. They take $10,000 from me and they give crumbs to people. And they say, oh, see, we gave it to the poor. And the poor don't even get anything from that. But I lost a lot. And that's really, really bad that the government does that in our country. Okay. In Russia, they were confiscating and making it into a class struggle. The bourgeois are exploiting you all. How do they have a big house? And how do they have all the livestock when the poor people don't have it? And they ask the poor peasant, why do you not have anything? And they say, I've been trying. I'm trying. It's been like this for decades, and my father didn't have very much. And there was a famine, and there was a war, and all this stuff. No, wrong answer. The answer is they have all the stuff. Your neighbor has a lot more than you do. And they say, I know the neighbors. They have more than me. What are you talking about? You have to be talked into this. You don't know this right off. They have more because they've been exploiting you. No, they haven't exploited me. They're my neighbors. I know they live right there. We do Halloween together or whatever. Something like that. But no, don't understand. The problem in our country is there's too many of you that don't have enough. They have it all. You and I will take it from them, and you will get some of it. They won't get it. And eventually they know. Look, you take it, we go and take it, but I don't get to have it. I have to go put it into the state farm, and then nobody has it. So I just took it from them, and then you get it. Stalin gets it. So he can control it. Yeah, the state gets everything. And so they have to be manipulated and played and talked into it. And so both sides know. But so here's the thing. So the state, not only did it have the rhetoric of Communist Manifesto, like the bourgeois, understand that you're a proletariat. You need to be conscious of that. And that is the exploiting class. The bourgeois, they say, they're not bourgeois. They have a cow over there. He's my neighbor. They have a cow that's making them, they're making so much more money than you. They have to be talked into it. And if they won't ever get talked into it, they say, look, you're either with us or you're going to the prison in Siberia. Okay, what do you want me to do? Well, come with me. We've got a crowd. We're coming and we're going to confiscate their stuff. And you be part of the crowd that screams them down. It's crazy. Did this. And we didn't do this 10 times. Didn't do it 100 times. Didn't do it 1,000 times. This did it hundreds of thousands of little villages. Yeah.
So if it obviously didn't work, was the main reason, say like Stalin, them don't want to grab power.
What do you mean it didn't work?
So,
you mean talked it into it?
Sorry. What I mean is like obviously we know communism isn't like a logical good system when it actually plays out. Or at least back
The history of it. A lot of evidence. There's hundreds of millions of evidence.
Yes. Yeah.
They're all dead.
And so, why did they wanted to institute that because they were empowered?
Well, yeah, they wanted to control the country.
Because I feel
Yeah,
like
for power.
that gets boring after a while. Like, if I have control of everything and I have all the money that I want, I'm going to get bored. And then there's like...
Well, it's a power thing.
That just means you're not a twisted individual.
Well, they're trying to control and they're trying to eradicate. They're real believers. They think private property is bad. They're like religiously thinking like that. They religiously think that private property is bad, capitalism is bad, what Marx said is all true, that people should, that the class structure needs to be dismantled. And anybody that was in that the bourgeois class needs to be eliminated. And everybody needs to be equal. But they want to put that into place, and they're the dictators of that. They live a cushy life, but it's not to be cushy. They are demented. They are religious figures. They're very similar to a really crazy religious person, a cult type person who's just like believes every little thing. And anybody that resists is an enemy. And so it's a power. You're right. Like, why people? Hitler believed what he was saying, and a different thing. Hitler is not a class struggle; it's a race struggle, and that's very similar. I know we talked about this before. Like, why does he not get any benefit of the doubt? The communists get some benefit of the doubt. Well, something about race, saying this race is the problem. This race is the problem, and we're going to go after that. Is like people just can't identify anything with that good. But if you say this class of people is the problem and we're going to eliminate them, somehow that doesn't register as evil to everyone. It's really the same thing. If you just said everything with little bottles like this is evil, well, that's crazy. Every little insect that goes across a table is evil. Everybody knows that's not true. Not every single one. So even that, an educated, normal, experienced person, like, you can't just blanket say that all these people are evil. You can't say that this bottle is evil. You can't say anything that points at things is bad. Like, it's just stupid. So you can't say that everybody of that race is evil and the problem. Nor can you say, but the Soviets said people who are from the bourgeois class are the problem. It's often said that mass movement, now these are all mass movements, where the people, Ms. Sands, Stalin, and Lenin understood, like, we have to get control of this whole country. Once we get control of this country, we can then move to international world revolution. But first we have to control this country. How do you control every last one of them? First of all, you had to eliminate all their armies. Then you had to eliminate all the resistors, the kulaks. And then you had to make up people who were the enemy. And often mass movements a lot of times we think of it, they're always looking for a savior, like Mussolini or Hitler as the savior. But it's more likely, more common that mass movements have a devil. They have somebody who's the problem. That's who did it to us. We're in our state because they did it to us. And Hitler had a devil, the Soviets had a devil, and they're different devils, but they had to invent a devil. And they believed it, and they manipulated people, and they used people to at least signal that they're with them. Much like, our country today is a long way from all of this, but we have made a little what's that sort of gesture? Like, I wonder if we should think about doing some of that. And we do a lot of virtue signaling. BLM. I put it in your a sign in your yard. Fortunately, that's all you got to do to get on the good side of those people. I got you. I love it. See, and you don't have to do anything. Only like 1% of them do anything. What those 1% are burning stuff, but all you have to do is it's this summer. All of a sudden, put a black square on your thing or whatever. Remember that? You ever heard of that? Like, all these people my age wanted to go out and tell everybody in the world that they're with the Black Lives Matter thing. Why did you do that? You want credit? Yeah, they want credit for being on that. And often, this happens to people, Christians, good people, bad, all kinds of people. Here's the first thing. I never liked Trump, but he's done some good things. That's a virtue signal. Yeah. Because that's in our culture. Trump is the bad guy. This was 4 years ago. And you know it. You've heard. Maybe you don't talk to your friends about Trump. People in our culture, it is all over the place. To make sure that people know that you didn't like some of the things that Trump did. You would never do that with Reagan or Bush or Clinton or Obama. I don't like Obama, but I kind of like some of the things about Obama, but I didn't vote for him. That would be like the bad thing. Because that's in our culture. That's on the TV. That's on every single thing. If Trump is, you don't really. But that's not true. There's like 80 million people voted for the first time practically for him, for somebody. It's so true. But anyway, it's virtue signaling. I'm for this. And so the Soviet Union was made on that. When they collectivized people, they put those people, remember we said there's an apartment the size of this little square right here? 4 families in there, 16 people, maybe 12 people, and a size for like somebody that, has his own apartment in America right here, one person and live real nice. But they put 12 people in there, and for decades. That's collective communal living, and they put informers in there. One of those 12 people was an informer to the government, just listening. Do the dishes. Did you hear that in Ukraine there's a famine? What? Is there famine in Ukraine? And everybody does it straight. This is the way the United States is a little bit right now. If you want real news, you talk to people that you trust. You don't get news. You turn on NBC, you're a fool. You are a fool. If you listen to anything on NBC, any of those things, you're on YouTube, you're on. I think you're way ahead of me on all this. Your generation's been way ahead of me. But if you want real political news, you do not turn on the television, like the regular TV. Like mostly what they have. There's no way that's true. I don't care which side you're on. It's just bogus. Promise. I lived in the Soviet Union. I've been here before. It's one-sided. It's totally one-sided. Even if you like that side, they know it's lying. It totally is. Until this thing shakes out, what's going on at the national level, that you got to get your news somewhere else. That's the way it is. That's the way the Soviet Union was for 70 years. No one listened to TV. No one. You listen to some of the radio, you know how they knew what was going on in the Soviet Union? They listened to the Voice of America secret radio stations. Midnight, they listen, and it's coming from West Germany or from France. And they go, God, what's going on? That's how he found out, because the government will not produce anything that's legitimate. And that's where we are right now. We are on that part. We're right there. Now they have stories that are not all about communism or anything, but it's all about the government. I'm talking about the incoming government, Biden, and all that. They can do no wrong, and everything's bad about the other. And that is so much like the Soviets and the Nazis. And it's so sad that people don't know that. But it's going to be good. It's going to be good for our country, because we need alternatives. Alternatives on everything. For Twitter and those people to take the president of the United States off, classic. He's the enemy of the people. You know that? Mr. Trump. He can't do a Facebook. He can't do a Twitter. He can't do a Snapchat. He can't do a lot of things. They have banned him from the internet. They. Who? Who banned him? He is outlawed. He is just like a Kulak right now. And they're trying to impeach him. They got 10 days left. They're going to impeach him. Right? This is like classic. This is classic totalitarianism. And so they, so to get your news, you have to find alternatives that you can trust. There's a lot of them. There's going to be another Twitter. There's going to be another Facebook stuff. All that's going to be in it. It's not hard to invent that. They invented it and got the monopoly, and it's just a private company. They have the right to do that. It's a private company. But they work for the Democratic Party. You've got to be educated on that. Not to be a Republican, but to be educated. Republicans probably would have done it too if they got in this situation. I don't know. But the point is you cannot believe what's on the television. I think you have parents that are smarter than me. They're way ahead of me on this. But it's amazing that we have people that would think that news has any legitimacy. They're trying to get control, and those people like the Facebook and Google and all Apple and all that, they're with Biden and all that. They work together. And so that's really dangerous. It's dangerous. But we have a lot more people than they do. The normal. I'm not taking you and me. I'm saying me, and I'm a group of people that free thinkers, and I've been there before. And I can see it. This is a brother to a place that I've been before. It's gone a long way before it gets to Stalin. But we are like, the media part is far along the way. The people are not near like that. They're not, no. Even the people that don't understand, they're not, I'm not going to persecute people. So, there's informers right now. There's informers over things in college. I don't know if you have siblings in college. There's students that are informing on other students for you wouldn't believe it. It's crazy. It really, I never thought in my whole life that there would be Americans that would ever inform politically on other people. I never would have thought it. I never would have thought that these gulags, this is a Russian word for prison camp, state lager. Can you say that word lager? Lager. That means camp. That's actually a German word too, German and Russian. It means camp. It's the same thing that the Italians and the Germans did, the concentration camps. Well, there's political prisoners. Most of them did nothing. All they did was say, "Hey, there's a famine in Ukraine. I heard it." He whispered to the other neighbor in their communal apartment or to their spouse, and the informer said, "Okay, okay," and then meets with the secret police and said, "I'm living with these people, and these people just talked about there's a famine And everybody knows, well, there is, and the policeman said, well, there is a famine. There's nothing wrong with that. No, that's anti-Soviet because you're bringing negative news. It's negative news. And you don't spread negative news. And the official thing is, there's no famine. There's no famine. There's 3 million people dead. No, there's not. My cousins, they're all dead in Ukraine. No, they're not. What do you do with that? No, they're not. That's exactly what's going on in our news. Trump's people just ransacked the Capitol. Man, they were just shooting all over the place. All the eyewitnesses, there wasn't a gun there. Have you ever seen eyewitnesses of what happened on last week? There's many eyewitnesses. It was. I wouldn't want to be in that crowd, but they're not. What about all those people this summer that were like burning down cities? You know what I'm saying? Like, they weren't burning down. Those are peaceful protesters. What? That's the official line. Peaceful protesters. So it's like, wait, we can't be on the same side. Like, just like, what are we looking at here? There's a fire. No, it's not. It's not a fire. That's not a fire. And so if the wrong people get in charge of the rhetoric of the news, then you're afraid to say. So when that person said, hey, I heard there was a famine in Ukraine, and then 3 days later, 3 months later, they come and knock on the door. They look down. Yeah, come with us. We're going to talk to you. Hey, everybody knows that's the secret police. That's the NKVD, the Czech NKVD. Here, give Dan a coat because he's not ever coming back. So no, if somebody comes at night, they don't do it like the Nazis, like put on their big boots. They up, like one guy like 2 a.m. Like, anybody up? Nobody's up. Right. All those 4 families know. Everybody down the hall knows. They hear that. So everybody's just quiet. Nobody looks out. No one in the Soviet Union ever looked out the hall. Like, who's that? Yeah. No. So, I didn't hear anything. If you hear something like, did you hear they took Downey? Okay, you were going too. You heard? No, they didn't take Downey. Downey disappeared. He must have done something bad. I know. Don't say it. You don't even say that. If you say that, then you know. Then you're like, what happened? They're like out of control. They just take people. No, they don't. And then you're next. Who's the informer? I'm not the informer. I know. Have you ever played that game like somebody knows? Like, I know it's not me, but I don't know who it is. It's surely not you. Wait a second. You're surviving this whole time. It's you. Then you make a mistake. That's the way they played for 70 years. It's super sad. And so everybody's virtue signaling. You hear about the thing? There's none. There's nothing wrong right now. We're booming. Stalin said we're dizzy with success. You know that's hogwash. Are you kidding me? My job is awesome. We are producing the most stuff. Stalin is one of the greatest leaders of all time. And so the informer like, we got one guy who's totally good with Stalin. Like he gets credit for that. It's like he puts his Black Lives Matter sign right in front of his business. You cannot bomb my place because I got the sign there. I already told you. In the other class we talked about, have you ever done that tip thing? Like there's a guy like, I don't know, making a pizza or something right there or something, and you're just come to get the pizza, but they have a tip jar. Like, wait, I came so I didn't have to pay the delivery tip. So I came, and they don't ask for it. They never ask for it, but it does say tips. Tips are welcome or whatever. And sometimes you want to be generous and like, okay, I'm gonna give a tip. And they weren't even looking. Like, wait a second, I want credit for that because I want to tip that person, but it's like this jar and they're going to share it with everybody. It's really, I'm trying to tip him, And so I want to put a $5 bill in there, but I'm about to put the $5. Okay. Like, I want to help them, but I want to get credit for that. I'm tipping. I didn't really want to tip. I want to be a tipper. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way it is politically, even in the United States a little bit. Like I said, wow, all you have to do is like say that you're with it. Like, are you and that's the thing about conservatives. Conservatives don't like to say things. Like even if they're for something, look, I'm private. I don't need to say like I'm going to give $5,000 to the church, or they don't sue. That's what a conservative is. They don't say, I just did amazing work right now, everybody. We just fed the poor on Sunday. We did a field trip down there, and we fed some poor. They don't do that. Not the conservatives that I've always known, and the Christians. They just they do stuff and nobody knows. And isn't that true? The people that you know that are like that, they never say like, going to feed the poor today. But what's the slight good thing about virtue signaling on the left, like I'm sort of a socialist, is all you have to do is say it. All you have to do is say it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. I'm for saving the planet. Where's my sticker? I'm gonna put it on my car. I'm for the green planet. Boom, boom. Pollution. Put that sticker on. I'm really for that. If you were for non-polluting, you would never get in a car again. If you're serious about it, you would never take a plane trip. You know how much carbon emissions is how about 40 years of it in one trip? You've been saving all your life driving around on a bicycle. You're saving all the emissions and saving the environment for 40 years. And you take one plane trip, it's all wiped away. Did you know that? It's not one plane trip from here to Milwaukee. That's so much carbon emissions. It's not just for me. It's 40 years for 10,000 people. And you just blew it, man. You understand how stupid that is? That you I'm going to ride my bicycle around saving the planet? That sounds good if we could all do that. But it doesn't work like that. People like Obama and Trump, they go around. Trump doesn't do this as much on that. But he doesn't talk about it either. See, he's not a hypocrite. We're going to save the planet. Never even mentioned it. Because it's stupid. It's a stupid issue. But all you have to do is say. And that comes from they make you say things. They make you join the crowd. And the people who don't follow crowds don't like people like that. The people who fall apart whenever there's an issue hey, Black Lives Matter is really taking over. Really doing a great thing, and the police brutality is getting out of control. And everybody, I'm talking about my generation, gets on this thing and puts their little black thing on it. Virtue signals to the world. I'm with them. You don't know a black in your life. You don't even know what you're talking about. You don't know a policeman. You don't know blacks. You're on your couch sending a whole black symbol. You're joining the movement. You're not doing anything. But they want credit for it. You understand? That is a major thing that we have in our country. It's called virtue signaling. You're signaling that you're better than other people. You understand? And conservatives don't do that as much. They don't want you to know that they're good or bad. They're just at home watching the game. And the liberals that take their cues from stuff like this and also other cues that are good cues. Actually, the environment is worthy. Actually, taking care of poor and blacks and everything is worthy. And those are all conservative issues, but they did it in private. They did it, and the people on the left want to signal how they're all in on these great causes, but they do nothing. Trust me. I've lived, I've had good friends that are socialists. Communists. I have more communist friends than you can imagine. And they do not care one thing about any of those issues. It's all talk. All of it. So, the thing to remember is when they tried to collectivize, they had to force people to collectivize. And when people resisted, they eliminated the whole class of people. It wasn't a class in the first place, but all those kulaks were eliminated. And it created a major famine. In 1931, 32, 33, like that, across the southern part of Russia and Ukraine, millions of people died of starvation. So, in your notes, what are the results of collectivization? is a whole bunch of farmers were liquidated, but it created a famine. And the reason why it created a famine is because when they were coming for their livestock and their property, do you know what those kulaks did? They killed their own property. They killed their own livestock so that the government wouldn't take it. You understand? They hid their food in wells and they dug holes in the ground, and they tried to save all their excess just for later. But it created a major famine. The government of the Soviet Union, often people do not know this history. This is just like the Nazis. Worse. This is worse than the Nazis. They sealed off the borders of Ukraine in 1931. And for 2 years, Ukrainians starved. They sealed it. No incoming or outgoing trade. No food that could come in here. They confiscated their food and put it on state farms, and those peasants, they starved. You ask yourself, would you rather do what the Nazis, would you rather have the nightmare of, now in your time, in 2021, we go and say, okay, this is a stupid, crazy nightmare, but here's your choice. You can do it the Soviet way, you can do it the Nazi way, but either way you're going to die. Do you want to, now you know, they're going to say you're a Jew and they're going to put you on a train, and it's going to take you 3 days to go across Poland. And when you get there, they're going to send you into the shower, you're going to strip, and they're going to send you into the showers, and they're going to gas you, and about 3 minutes later you're going to be dead, and they're going to burn your body. Or you want 3 years of starvation, and you will die, and your children and grandparents and everything right in front of you, and you'll all die. Which one do you want? You understand? It's a stupid scenario, but why? People need to know this. This was government forced. Everybody knows this in Eastern Europe now. They knew it then. When there was a report that this was happening, the government said that's not happening. And Americans heard through the grapevine, and British people heard through the grapevine, there's some major famine in Ukraine. And the official government of the Soviet Union, Stalin, there is none. There's not a famine. Can we go and inspect, like the Red Cross and stuff? Can we? Are you sure? Like, okay, yeah, people can inspect. And they took them around in here to the places that, they weren't. Somehow they had it, where they can take you to the perfect spot. And people are going to church and everything. Hey, and American journalists and people that were on those writers, they said, I went to the Soviet Union and it was awesome. People came back to America saying that the Soviet Union is an awesome place. Just as our Americans went to the Nazi Germany and said it's an awesome place. They're not persecuting Jews. They're not doing anything. They have a great economy. People love Hitler. Yeah, it's kind of weird. They're always saluting weirdly and stuff like that, but it's actually better off than it was 10 years ago, stuff like that. And they did that in the Soviet Union too, Americans. They were played like a fiddle. Yeah, they took you there. When I went to the Soviet Union in 1987, my first time, the very end of all this, 87, I traveled with half the people were communists, American communists. They were going to the motherland. Bernie Sanders was over there in 1980. He loved that place. That just tells you right now, you can't, that's ridiculous. I was there, and it's a joke. It was a joke. 3 people in a phone booth painting and stuff like that. Just stupid economy, just stupid stuff. And I was educated by people underground. By the 1980s, people like, I was a little older than you, would tell me like what's going on. They'd tell me everything was going on. I couldn't even believe it. I knew it was communism, something bad about it, and but I was willing to surely all of that was just made up by Americans. A lot of conservatives and Reagan, people like, they made the Soviet Union to be worse than it could possibly be. I was very open-minded. I was educated, walking around educated. But I've traveled with communists, Americans,
who had never been there. And there were people who wrote. There were socialist writers like Mussolini. There were writers in New York City, highly educated, doctorate in all kinds of stuff. And they were writers in New York City for a socialist communist newspaper in New York City. I was traveling with them. We stayed in tents together. This was the first time the Soviet Union became open. You can just go wherever you want. Just went wherever we wanted. Met wherever we wanted. There was a million stories and everything. But those socialists, I'm talking about American socialists. When we got to the Soviet Union about a week later, I met them early morning one day. I wasn't friends with them. They were like 75-year-old people. I'm 20, you know. You know what I'm saying? So they were real nice people. All that. They were like this. She's over here, he's over this. They've been married. Didn't have any children. Right. There's a bunch of young people. Americans. What's going on? We wasted our whole life. We just came to the conclusion we just wasted our whole life. But what are you talking about? And they told us their whole story about being for communism and writing for it, loving, and they'd been coming to the Soviet Union. But where did they go? They went to museums and the best places and the stores that were filled that only foreigners could see and nobody else could go in. They made the roads, the best roads, but right off of the road is like trash. They had missiles that go to into space and all that, but they had nothing else. They had tanks, nothing else. 70 years of nothing. I realized that not. And I wasn't pro-Soviet at all. I was like just looking at the country, you know. But there were people like, I came over here. I had a friend. He came over and stayed in Moscow for a year studying. I didn't see anything. Like, see, it's propaganda. Tell you what you want to see. There's nothing to see here. Like this, we just had elections 2 months ago, and that media said nothing happened. Nothing happened. And half the country knows they stole in 6 places. There's no question about it. And everybody in those states knows. They all know. The whole country knows. And you need to know that. You need to know that. You need to know that media, they're not curious about that at all. Like how did Biden? This reminds me of that. The propaganda. Why are they doing that? Why are they covering that up? Why don't they just say Biden people wanted him? Why don't he just win? What's wrong with that? Why can't you just back it up and say he pulled off a miracle? No, there's no curiosity. You don't want to ask anybody. You don't go into Pennsylvania like, what happened with Biden? We thought, Trump was going to win this, and you won. Because they wouldn't find anybody. You wouldn't find a soul. That's why. You go to Pennsylvania a month before the election, not one sign for Biden. There are people with flags all over the place. 50,000 people at Trump rallies. And Biden has 10 people with masks on right here. 10 people in cars. That's a loser, man. He was going to lose, and he lost. You need to be educated about this. This is exactly what they did. It's propaganda. Now, we're a long way from the persecution and all that, but for some reason, they are covering all this stuff. Why can't you be curious? Why can't you back it up? Because they're covering something. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. Okay, so one more thing. So depopulation, famine, it was intentional. It was intentional. They're going to make people bow down. This is one of the few eyewitness photographs from those times. Remember, propaganda, they would not allow anybody with a camera. In 1987, when I went, at the very end, I ended up living there and stuff as the communism fell. And I was there when it fell. And you think, who believed this? Well, in some ways, there were a lot of true believers. But by 1991, when it fell apart, there's somebody just got up on a tank and said, communism is over. And the whole country just went, it's over. Communism's over. I'm done. And now you can find a communism again. Like, night and day. And you got to hand it to the Russians. You got to hand it to they had that. But just think how countries can go. when there's nothing to it, like the Nazis and the fascists and the communists, when there's really no substance to it, people will drop it like it's a feather. They'll just drop it. If there's some substance, you don't want to drop it. It's got some good stuff to it, you know. But the communists, they had it for 70 years, and it shows you what people thought of it. As soon as they could get rid of communism, you couldn't find it anywhere. And all the young people, nobody's a communist. Now, where are the communists? In our country. It's ridiculous because they never experienced the real thing. They think they're finding out something new, but they're in the garbage bins right now. You're looking for something. Hey, bourgeois. That's so stupid. It's ridiculous. It's because so much time has passed. You know, if you talk to old people before, they said, what I'm worried about is not now, but one day my generation is going to pass away and no one will remember like World War II. No one will remember the Holocaust. And that's what Jews always talk about. And they're passionate about. Make sure everybody remembers the Holocaust and Hitler and don't let it happen again and all this. And eventually all the eyewitnesses will be gone. And that's true. But we need to know that about the Soviet Union too. Like, nobody even knows. Nobody even. So you guys are, not that this is like the awesome thing, but just being curious about it. There was this thing called the Soviet Union, and it was hideous and evil and crazy, and it was very similar to the fascists, and very similar. Major loss of life, much more than the Holocaust. Major loss of property, economy destroyed, everything. I mean, just all for the sake of some theory. But they wanted to, the collectivization, industrialization, this industrialization, they really were trying to catch up to the rest of the world, and they didn't know how to do it in a market way, and so they just had to control it. And Bernie Sanders and less so Biden and less so Trump and less, Trump has a little thing in there where the government needs to really help people. Even though he's a conservative, he's the one that said, we need to send $2,000 to everybody. Like, what's that going to do? Nothing? He knows that. Why is he doing that? Because he's political. And they're doing 600, he's doing 2,000. Like, neither one of them are any good. I mean, you've got to give somebody crumbs. It's a crumb. But it's going to bankrupt our country. And just so you know, I'll let you guys go. This is a hard thing to fathom. I've talked way too much about our time. But one more thing. When I was your age, I remember when we went to $1 trillion of debt. I was a little older than you. And then, of course, now it's 30 trillion. Well, in 2008, it was at 4 trillion. Wait, is that right? No, it was in 2000, it was, so this is let's just say 1980, it was 1 trillion. In 2000, it was 4 trillion. Then in 2008, it was 8 trillion. And then in 2016, it was 16 trillion. Okay, so it doubles every president. Of course, it took a long time to get to 1 trillion. This is how much we owe. The government owes to people that we've been borrowing from. Not foreigners only, but okay. So it was 1 trillion. Then now it's 30 trillion. Trump went from 16 to 30 in 4 years. It's not just Trump. It's not just Obama. It's not just Bush. But that's who's the steward of that money. And so, being objective, I'm for Trump. But, man, that's ridiculous. He's the biggest debtor we've ever had. He doubled it in 4 years. Almost double. It's over 30. We'll never pay that off. What my point is, I'm talking about how the problem with big government, it starts creeping so big that you start toying with communism or fascism, because that's how you control. The government's so powerful and strong, it has to control everything. And when you
have this much debt, the government has to get gigantic. And it's not just one party, this is both of those parties. No, it's virtue signaling right there. All right, see you guys later. Talk about fascism some more next time. Yay! Getting educated. I know it's a mouthful, a head full. I know.